Welcome to the STEM Sessions podcast. I am your host, Cody Colborn. Well, I decided to try something different with this episode. It's a live fact checking of a meme about honeybees. The point is to show how easy it is to verify stuff you read on the internet. I just copied over the statements from the meme. I opened a search engine, then I opened Audacity, set up the mic, and hit record. There's no editing in this episode. I left in the stammering, the mispronunciations, everything. So the runtime is how much time I spent actually searching for the information and evaluating it. Including the few minutes I chat before I started my search, I spent a little over 23 minutes doing this. Now, in the name of full disclosure, I did type in my search queries before starting the recording. I basically just opened up a bunch of tabs and just preloaded everything, but I didn't read the search results. I did this because it's just too difficult to type with the microphone set up, and I didn't want the dead space of me typing to show up in the podcast. I figure I'm boring enough as it is. Why do you want to hear a bunch of clickety-clacky dead space? So I guess go ahead and add another minute or two to the total if you really want to get technical about how long I spent doing this. This is the STEM Sessions Podcast, episode 30. Give me some sugar, little honeybee. Many times this year, a honeybee meme has found its way into my social media feeds. Now, there are 11 so-called facts in this meme. And upon first read, I could tell a lot of them were just nonsense. And some were probably technically true, and maybe one or two were actually meaningfully true. But then again, I'm a skeptic, and I'm very cynical about everything these days, and I have a finely tuned BS detector. Oddly, though, I found that the phrasing and buzzwords that made me skeptical are the same phrasing and buzzwords that would likely lead people to believe what they're reading are true statements. So to show everyone that it only takes a few minutes to evaluate the truthiness of memes, I'm going to fact check that meme in real time right now. My guess is I'll be able to sufficiently dissect these 11 bullet points in around 15 minutes. And I'm just going to use, standard search engine of your choice. I'll just use Google since that's probably what everybody else will use. So let's get started. Okay, the first question or fact is, did you know that one of the world's first coins had a bee symbol? Okay, well, first of all, this is kind of open to interpretation. What do they mean by one of the world's first coins? But we'll get to that. So, according to the search engine results, in the what would that be? The the 4th and 5th century BCE, there are coins that are housed in the British Museum, and they show one side of the coins have a bee symbol on it. And there are accompanying pictures and images, and there are other sites that corroborate that. Okay, so now we have to figure out, well, when were the first coins minted? And most of the sites that I'm looking at here put the origins of actual coinage around 650 BCE. So these bee coins appeared about 250 to 300 years after the first coins were produced, given that we've been minting coins, therefore, for 2,500, 2,600 years. Yeah, sure. I'll definitely say that that this is true in spirit, although I think they're taking liberties with the world's first coins phrasing. Next statement. Did you know that honey contains live enzymes? Okay, let's tackle the easy part first. Yes, honey does contain enzymes. I think pretty much everybody knows that. And according to some articles I'm looking at here from the National Institute of Health, enzymes present in honey include things like glucose oxidase, A amylase, A glucosidase, proteases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, other words I can't pronounce. So yes, enzymes appear in honey. But the question says, do you know that honey contains live enzymes? And that's dumb because enzymes aren't alive, so it's meaningless. Enzymes are just proteins that act as catalysts in a given chemical reaction in a cell or even on like an assembly line or in a factory. So maybe the question should have actually said, does honey contain useful enzymes to humans? And that would be true, but they're certainly not. Live enzymes is meaningless. So I'm gonna again give this an answer of misleading but true. Next question. Did you know that in contact with a metal spoon, these enzymes die? The best way to eat honey is with a wooden spoon. And if you can't find a wooden spoon, use a plastic spoon. Okay, again, enzymes can't be killed because they're not alive in the first place. However, proteins can be denatured by outside factors, and that denaturing can render those proteins, or in this case, enzymes, useless to our bodily functions. But again, they're not alive, so they can't be killed. Now, metal ions can bind to different sites within the enzyme's molecular structure, and that can disrupt bonding between the different amino acids and just change the shape of the protein. And when a protein's shape is changed, its function is also typically changed. However, your typical stainless steel spoon that we use to eat, it doesn't shed a lot of ions because, stainless steel is popular for its non-reactivity. Now, a copper spoon might shed ions, which could interfere with the protein structure, but even in that case, honey wouldn't be on the spoon long enough for those ions to like completely zap and denature all the enzymes within that tablespoon of honey. So I'm calling this thing the answer here is just false. Next question. Did you know that honey contains a substance that helps the brain work better? I have no idea about this one, but there's a lot of good enzymes in honey, so it wouldn't surprise me. So let's see what the search engine says. And yeah, so there's a lot of NIH articles and other websites. They do show that honey can have a positive impact on brain health. I mean, I'm not really sure what the question means by work better, but these articles do show a potential positive impact on brain health. And it looks like honey can decrease the oxidation stress levels and increase concentration and neuronal proliferation in the medial prefrontal cortex and hippocampus, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I'm not an expert. I don't know what a lot of that means, but I will render this true, but kind of with an asterisk that says, yeah, but it's not like a miracle drug. It's just those enzymes are probably found in a lot of other foods too. Okay, so these next 3 facts I'm going to lump together because after reading them, they really point to the same information, the same answer. So here they are. Did you know that honey is one of the few foods on Earth that alone can sustain human life? Did you know that bees saved people from starvation in Africa? And did you know that a spoonful of honey a day is enough to keep a man alive for 24 hours? All right. All 3 of these statements are just silly. Honey is almost entirely sugar, so it is great for an energy boost if you haven't eaten in a while. That's why it's listed as or recommended as a good survival food, or even a good food to have on the trail after a long day of hiking, because you can just get an energy boost, raise that blood sugar kind of which gets rid of the any kind of fatigue or sluggishness you have, and you can keep going. But according to Google, and just according to what I already know, it's basically all sugar. It doesn't contain any usable proteins. It doesn't have any fat. It certainly doesn't really have any of the nutrients or vitamins or minerals that we need for a good, healthy life. So honey is definitely not one of the few foods on earth that alone can sustain human life, because you can't live on honey alone, because it doesn't have everything you need to live. I mean, maybe over a short period, sure, but definitely it's not something you could eat full time and live. Now, as for the starvation question, I find it the fact that they said save people from starvation in Africa. I mean, that's just a great thing to throw in there to get people to believe it, because it's, oh yeah, surely that would happen in Africa. But here's the deal. You can easily survive without eating for 24 hours. And in fact, you can, maybe not easily, but you can survive for several weeks with consuming very little calories. So it's kind of meaningless to say that honey has saved people from starvation when, you can go that long without food anyway. But let's look at the math. So let's assume that a human male needs 2,000 calories to maintain his weight, given just kind of a consistent level of energy expenditure. And obviously you can survive on much less calories for weeks or months. A tablespoon of honey, according to the search engine, has about 64 calories in it. Now, to lose 1 pound over a given time period, you need a caloric deficit of about 3,500 calories. So if you were living on a diet of 1 tablespoon of honey per day, that basically means you'll lose 1.1 pounds every 2 days. However, without that tablespoon of honey per day, you'll lose about 1.2 pounds per day. Or every 2 days. Yeah, 1.2 pounds every 2 days. So the honey is actually meaningless in that equation. So whether it's you're looking at long-term starvation or enough to keep a man alive for 24 hours, that's all BS. The answers to all three of these are completely and utterly false. Next question. Did you know that propolis, produced by bees and found in honey, is one of the most powerful natural antibiotics? Again, they're using a terminology like most powerful and natural antibiotics. What do those even mean? It's highly open to interpretation. So I'm already guessing this is probably true, but misleading. So let's just kind of quickly look at the search engine here. Okay. Again, lots of articles from NIH, Healthline, even Wikipedia. I'm ignoring any beekeeping or bee raising site, just because they're going to be biased. But yeah, so it says that propolis is a natural resinous mixture produced by honeybees from substance collected from parts of plants, buds, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, there are health benefits. Whether it is one of the most powerful natural antibiotics, I don't know. So I'm just going to label this one as maybe true, definitely misleading. Again, there's some truth to it, but it's definitely not as headline worthy as this fact sheet is making it out to be. So let's move on to the next one. Did you know that honey has no expiration date because it's already been digested? Now look, I think we all know that honey will keep a long time in your cabinet. And even if it does crystallize, you can basically you can heat it up and those crystals will dissolve back into solution and the honey will be as good as new. But I really don't think it's because it's already been digested. But let's just so I'm going to type in, why does honey not go bad? Just to see what comes up. And yeah, and looking at these citations that pop up, it has more to do with honey's low water content and high acidity, because both of those things prevent or at least slow down the growth of bacteria that cause foods to spoil. Those bacteria need both water and apparently a low acidity environment, which I didn't know, but I definitely knew the water. It's the same reason why dehydrated foods like jerky or freeze-dried foods or anything like that don't go bad, because there's no water. A lot of times there's salt, which also deters bacterial growth, but that's what it is. It's the water content. So this thing that it's already been digested is completely false. Next question. Did you know that the bodies of the world's greatest emperors were buried in gold coffins and then covered in honey to prevent putrefaction? All right, so right off the bat, the whole gold coffins thing, who cares? That's pointless. That's just a way of making it sound better, making the statement sound more authoritative than it is. So let's focus on the honey preventing putrefaction part. So I've already known that honey was used in mummification processes in Egypt as a way of basically preventing bacterial growth and preventing putrefaction in basically preserving the tissue. So I just typed in, does honey prevent putrefaction? And yes, there are definitely citations that say it has some preservative properties when it comes to tissues. And there's even some citations talking about embalming with honey in a quest for an eco-friendly embalming, as opposed to using some of the harsher, more environmentally unfriendly chemicals. So sure. I'll give this one just a solid true, but definitely just barely because of the whole gold coffins thing. Next, did you know that the term honeymoon comes from the fact that the bride and groom consumed honey for fertility after their marriage? So I know nothing about the origin of the word honeymoon, but I'm already kind of skeptical of this one. So I'm going to type in, what is the etymology of the word honeymoon? Again, trying to separate it from the actual honeybee part or the actual honey part. So let's see. This is from Etymololine, whatever. I don't know. Etymoline. Okay, whatever. I suck at pronunciations. So this says that honeymoon is attributed to the 1540s, but it was probably older, and it's derived from honey in reference to the new marriage's sweetness, and moon, meaning month, in reference to how long it will probably last, the sweetness part, or from the changing aspect of the moon. So basically the honeymoon period was supposed to, the phase where you're head over heels from each other is supposed to last for a month in this regard. And there's also citations or going all 1540s, 1570s. And then it's used more starting in the 1800s. But I don't see any of the explanations here talking about the fact that they ate honey for fertility. So yeah, I'm gonna say this one is most likely false, just because, when you're talking about word origins, I think sometimes that's kind of a science in and of itself that's always changing. So we'll say probably false on that. Last one. Did you know that a bee lives less than 40 days, visits at least 1,000 flowers, and produces less than a teaspoon of honey, but for her, it is the work of a lifetime? Oh, how poetic, how poetic. All right, so let's just tackle this first. And again, I'm assuming this is the Western honeybee, and not any of the other, dozens or hundreds of bee species that are out there. So how long does a honeybee live? The female worker bee, which is the one that collects all the honey, lives 30 to 60 days. Okay, so it says less than 40 days. Partially true. Average is 45 according to this search. So less than 40 days is kind of stretching it. I wonder if they say less than 40 days because that has a biblical connotation to it. Who knows? Okay, next part is visits at least 1,000 flowers. And I said, how many flowers will a honeybee visit? And most of these citations say, okay, here's one that says 50 to 100 flowers during a collection trip, and there are multiple collection trips a day. Here's another one that says a single honeybee will visit or pollinate about 5,000 flowers a day. So I guess when it says at least 1,000 flowers, it's technically true. Just kind of hedging its bets. And I can tell that that's definitely, some of these estimates are definitely okay just by looking at the native bees that visit the flowers in my yard. They're, definitely one trip they're hitting dozens and dozens of flowers, and then they come back for more. So now let's see, how much honey does one honeybee produce? And it looks like here's a single bee can produce 1 tablespoon of honey in its lifetime. Here's one that says 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. That's quite a big swing, because a teaspoon is what? 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. So that's quite the big range. Another less than a teaspoon. So I'm going to just label this one as sort of true, because the numbers are all within the range of what I'm seeing when I do these searches, but they're not really at the average or the midpoint of those ranges. So I'm going to say sort of true, and just leave it at that. Okay, so let's so there were 11 questions, and let's see. We've got the falses. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so half of them were false. Let's see, misleading but true. 1, 2 misleading but trues, and the rest were either, brings us up to 8, which leaves 3 either trues or sort of trues. That's not a really good track record for this meme. But again, now let's look at the time. So according to my recording, we're with a 22.5-minute mark. I don't know how long I spent on the introduction. Let's just say 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah. So I think I was able to fact check this in less than 20 minutes. So let's just let that be a lesson to everybody. If you ever read a meme on the internet, and just be skeptical of it, and take a few minutes to, do some searches, do your own research, figure out what's true and what's false, and definitely don't spread it around, pass it along to anybody until you know it's true. In fact, just don't even pass along the memes. Let's just all stop. I think the social media would be probably a better place to exist in if we all just kind of stopped with the memes. Yeah, but that said, who cares? Memes are great. Keep it going. Thank you for listening to this episode of the STEM Sessions podcast. It was researched, written, and produced by Cody Colborn. Show notes can be found at thestemsessions.com, and feedback and corrections are always welcome. If you received value from this episode and wish to give some back, please visit thestemsessions.com/value for value for ways to support the podcast. And please remember, STEM belongs to everyone. We should not allow it to be siloed or gatekept by experts, policymakers, or talking heads. Bias is found in every message, so always verify what you read and what you're told. Until the next episode, stay curious.